All right, boys. Just off for a quick 5K with the squad if anybody fancies joining me.
No, you're right, mate.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Greg, do you ever think to yourself, why am I doing this?
All the time. But you know what? That's what keeps me going. My name is Professor Greg Whyte. I'm an Olympian, a sports scientist, and an endurance swimming specialist. In the UK, one person drowns every 20 hours. And tragically, many of that number are children and young people. And with hundreds of swimming pools closing across the UK and millions of children leaving school unable to swim, that figure is likely to rise. And as a parent and a health campaigner, I couldn't just sit around and watch that happen. So I decided to do something about it. I set myself an endurance swim challenge, far beyond anything I'd ever tried before. It would be a world record attempt and also raise funds and awareness for 2 charities, which in turn would help save lives from drowning. This film is about that incredible challenge where I set out to break a record and almost broke myself. I've been involved in endurance sport for my entire life. I'm an Olympian and an elite athlete in multiple sports, and I'm also a European and World Championship medalist in the sport of modern pentathlon. As an endurance specialist, I have worked with sport relief, comic relief and children in need in multiple endurance challenges over the past 2 decades. I've worked with dozens of celebrities on incredible challenges, including summiting Kilimanjaro twice, cycling the length of Britain, and taking on the 3 Peaks Challenge in Arctic conditions. The endurance challenges I'm probably best known for are when I helped David Williams in his ultra endurance swims of the Thames and the English Channel. In 2006, David successfully swam the English Channel, and in 2011 took on the River Thames, and in doing so raised an incredible amount of money for charity. I swam alongside him on both challenges, and even now, years later, being part of those incredible endurance achievements remains one of the best experiences of my life. The legacy of the challenges were they both raised interest in swimming, and swimming is a fabulous activity for improving physical, mental, emotional and social health, and an activity that can be enjoyed by everyone. But water is inherently dangerous. Drowning is a tragedy, but it's a preventable tragedy. And if we could help raise awareness of water safety, we could help save lives. And so I decided to set myself an endurance swim challenge to help support charities that deal with drowning prevention. And what better way to do that than to retrace the Upper Thames swim route that I completed with David Williams on its 13-year anniversary. The River Thames is divided into 2 sections. Downstream from Teddington Lock is the tidal Thames, but our challenge will be taking on the Upper Thames, starting from Lechlade in Gloucestershire, travelling 200 kilometres to Teddington Lock in 4.5 days to set a new Guinness World Record. The challenge was going to be tough, which meant the training had to be even tougher. With much of the training taking place in the winter months, the pool would become central to training. In addition, land training in the gym and the great outdoors would be essential to improve strength and strength endurance, as well as providing variety to the thousands of metres of swimming. I wanted the challenge to raise funds for 2 life-saving charities that focus on drowning prevention, the Royal National Lifeboat Institute and the Royal Lifesaving Society. Most people are probably aware of the RNLI. We've all seen images of lifeboats smashing through monstrous seas while saving lives. But maybe less familiar is the incredible work of the RLSS, the Royal Lifesaving Society.
Well, our job is to train, educate everyone to enjoy the water safely. Now, we do that loads of different ways. Most people probably recognise the red and yellows on the pool side, so we train 40,000 lifeguards every single year. But it goes beyond that. We deliver about 50,000 Rookie Lifeguard Awards every single year to children, and about 1.5 million kids get off free education in schools across the UK and Ireland every single year. We've got an incredible programme in the UK in terms of having swimming on the school curriculum in England, but I think it's a well-known fact that actually there's still a huge percent of children that can't swim. And actually, if you're from a low affluence background, you're half as likely to be able to swim as if you're from a high income families. So there's lots of children in the UK that don't have that basic ability to be able to swim. The World Health Organization have described drowning worldwide as at epidemic levels, and they also describe it as completely avoidable, and that's the important thing. If everybody had a basic level of knowledge of swimming and water safety, actually they can be around water, they can enjoy water with some confidence that they know what to do should they get into trouble.
Yeah. Fantastic. And the sort of stuff that's going on that we're seeing tonight?
Basically, they're teaching water safety skills, and it's about making sure that they're safe themselves, but also then giving them some basic rescue skills so they can be the heroes in the community, keeping other people safe and explaining that to their friends. But
Brilliant. I mean, it looks amazing.
it is amazing. Come on, let me show you.
As a former lifeguard myself, it was wonderful to see the new generation of lifeguards in action. Watching these fabulous young people cemented my belief that supporting the RLSS is crucial to reduce the tragedy of drowning. One of the significant water safety issues is knowing what to do if you find yourself unexpectedly in the water. And the message here is key: float to live. Sudden unexpected cold water immersion leads to a host of physiological responses, including the cold shock response, which can be deadly. So I went down to Portsmouth to see my mate and the world's leading authority on cold water immersion, Professor Mike Tipton, to find out more on this issue. Mike and his team have developed a laboratory test to examine the physiological response to sudden cold water immersion, replicating the cold shock response, which is responsible for a large number of drownings.
So we're going to move you over the water now for 1 minute just to check we're getting everything we need. And then I give you a countdown at the end of that minute. When I get to 0, if you take a slightly larger than normal breath in, hold it as long as you can, and then just let happen what happens naturally.
Mike, I just want Greg to take a big deep breath in for me, please. You just need to check up. And relax. Thank you.
Whose idea was this?
In 5, 4, 3, breath in, 1, go. That's good, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Looking good. We'll take the mouthpiece out in 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, just so we can take that out. Okay.
Bloody hell! 12 degrees!
12 degrees, yeah. You can take your nose clip off.
Oh look, I'm not kidding, that feels like ice cold. Oh. I'd say holding your breath, forget it.
Ready?
Oh.
You managed about, I think, 10 or 15 seconds.
The drive to breathe. I mean, I was really trying not to breathe.
Some people notice their diaphragm flapping,
Yeah.
trying to make the breathing,
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
suppress it.
And your abs, like really fighting it.
Yeah.
And I tell you what I noticed is hip flexors tighten up almost
Yeah.
instantly.
Yeah, you get an isometric, whole body
Yeah.
isometric contraction.
Everything's sort of contracting.
But you're now coming out for 2 minutes and you're pretty much back under control, yeah? You can breath hold now,
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
It's just that first minute and a half.
Literally, as soon as that goes in,
Yeah.
it's like somebody punching you.
Yeah. We'll get you out now, that's 2 minutes. Good.
Well, Mike, I'd like to say that was fun, but I'd be lying.
But well done, congratulations, you've experienced cold shock.
Definitely.
And there it is. So just before you went in, low heart rate, breathing slow and under control. Then you go in the water, maximum breath hold time about 12 seconds. This is a guy who can do it for 2 minutes in air.
Yeah.
And then following that break of breath hold, uncontrollable breathing. And this is the dangerous period, this period here. This is what the bit you have to survive in order to be not one of the 60% who die in the first seconds of immersion. The chances of taking that one breath of water into the lung that can drown you, very, very high in that time.
Yeah. And it really was uncontrollable, completely out of control.
Yeah. After about a minute, you regain that control,
Yeah.
and now you're through the most dangerous period of immersion. But you've got to do the right things in the first minute.
Yeah. So what do we do, Mike, during that really dangerous period then?
Number one, fight the instinct to thrash about. This is a natural response to try and get out of the situation, but actually it makes things worse. So fight your instincts, stay still and float until you regain control of your breathing. This is, as I said, the neurophysiological equivalent of it's okay once you're in, and you've got to get beyond that uncontrollable period.
And of course that underpins your Float to Live campaign.
Yeah, the cold shock response was the driver to get people to float, fight their instincts until they get their breathing back under control.
That is fascinating, Mike. Thanks very much, really appreciate it.
It was a very great pleasure.
Long distance swimming can be a really lonely experience. And unlike running and cycling, it's really difficult to have a chat when your face is buried in the water. But swimming can also be an incredible social event, irrespective of age and ability. For me, training with the Wickham District Swim Squad and sharing the experience is a highlight of my training programme.
This swim club's so important. It's a massive community. They all get together because of the common thread for swimming. They enjoy the nice social side and they work really hard when they're in the pool. Swimming's a life skill. It'll save your life in terms of falling in a river, etc. It's one of the best skills you can learn and keep up.
So Greg's just about to do his swim challenge.
Yeah.
What do you reckon to his chances?
Oh, he's so mentally strong, and he can go all day. If he was left in the pool all day, he'd still be there, and he'd probably be here in the morning as well. So mentally strong, keep going, keep focused, and enjoy it.
Well, I don't know what he's really playing at, to be honest. It's a crazy challenge to take on, but he's an absolute legend, so I'm sure he'll smash it out the park.
With the improving weather came the opportunity to begin the big mileage in open water. Continuous long swimming would come closer to replicating the physical and psychological demands of the Thames and become increasingly important as we approach the challenge. One of the significant issues with this challenge would be fatigue compounded by sleep deprivation and energy deficiency, all of which make thermoregulation really difficult, controlling core body temperature. And for that, I knew that we would need the right equipment, the right wetsuits. So I headed to the specialists at Hoob for advice.
Well, you can imagine a wetsuit isn't just a wetsuit, and for this challenge, and certainly for the way Greg swims, we need a specific suit for this. And so we have our statement suit, which is called the Agilis. Completely flexible, just going to allow Greg complete freedom in his stroke. There's going to be no restriction. If we put any restriction in, or there's any hint of it, that fatigue's just going to generate. And we know he's not out there for half an hour a day, is he? It's going to be a lot longer. So whilst we have the perfect all-rounder suit, we do have some standbys. And that will be the Varmin Glacier suit. Now this suit is just thicker in the right places, has different lining materials. And most of the time it's going to be about that perception of being warm, that I do feel warmer. Because you can trigger, if you are too cold, the shivering, and that's going to use up energy. So this suit's just keeping Greg that bit warmer if he needs it. And also it's important, a bit like if you go on a long run or you're training for a marathon, they say swap your shoes, just have something a little bit different. So this is just a second suit for Greg to put on, just so he feels a little bit different. It's not that complete monotony, just something to change what's going on those many, many long hours of the swim.
Swimming almost non-stop for 4.5 days was going to deliver one thing: misery. And so what I knew was it was absolutely crucial that I fill up what I like to call the happy bank, this area in the brain which will support me through those really difficult dark periods. And the happy bank is filled by the training, the work that you put into training. The more training you do, the harder you work in training, the more happiness that you can invest into that bank. And what that means is during the challenge, you can withdraw that happiness to overcome those difficult periods. There is no doubt that for 200 kilometers of swimming, the happy bank would be absolutely crucial for success. I've swum all over the world, including some of the busiest shipping channels on the planet. But the river is a very different place. It can be incredibly busy. But for me, training at the moment, there was not enough traffic on the river to replicate what we were going to see during the challenge. So because of that, I headed down to Dartmouth to see my old mate, skipper Chris Tracy, so that we could actually do some training in a very busy waterway and get ready for the challenge. Well, here we are in beautiful Dartmouth as part of training, which is going well so far, and I'm with skipper Chris. Good to see you, Chris.
And you too.
So Chris is looking after everything on water for the challenge, but this is my first time on the Dart. So any advice for this particular piece of river?
Yeah, a little bit different to the Thames. We're quite tidal here, but we've got the tide going with us today. We're going to stick to the left-hand side out the way of all the boats, and everything should be good.
Good news. So 10k swim, what we like to call a marathon. With the tide pushing us, hopefully we'll be finished in the daylight. The sessions in Dartmouth were focused on the technical and tactical aspects of the challenge for both Chris and myself. It would help Chris get a feel for my speed and the position of the boat, as well as practice feeding and communication. Understanding the position of the boat and its role in navigation and support would be crucial, not only to help me avoid a mouthful of diesel, it would also help optimise my safety and performance on the Thames. 10,000 metres, 2 hours and 3.
How you feeling?
Feeling strong, feeling good. What a beautiful day and what a beautiful river. Absolutely stunning. Right, out to sea today, Chris. Where are we going?
That's it. So we're going to head round towards Slapton. What we want you to do is we've got the Eastern Blackstone just over here.
Yep.
Stay on the inside of that, hug
Watch
the
it.
coast round, and watch out for some wildlife.
What are we looking for in terms of wildlife, mate?
So we might see some seals today, and if we're lucky, we might get the odd pod of dolphins. But
Well,
very
I certainly know that the seals do like me,
The-
principally because it's not because of what I'm dressed in, it's because I smell a fish.
a little bit, yeah.
Swimming in the sea provided an opportunity to swim a greater distance in considerably colder water compared to the river, and offered an additional challenge which would allow us to test our technical and tactical plan and make changes where necessary to optimise performance and safety. That was a tough swim. I mean, look at it, it's beautiful. But after yesterday's swim, it's tough. But no one said it was easy. No one said it was going to be easy, did they? After a year of training and preparation, I was physically and mentally ready for this challenge. But the schedule was brutal. 200 kilometres in 4.5 days. That's around 45 kilometres or 35 miles a day for 4.5 consecutive days. That would mean I had to swim for 18 to 20 hours a day. And in that short period of recovery, I would have to get a massage to try and repair the damage that was ongoing, try and refuel, and get some sleep for probably 1.5 to 2 hours before re-entering the water and repeating again. I always say nothing good comes easy, but this challenge was about as far away from easy as I could get. I mean, approaching the start line for me is exciting. I think it's the overwhelming feeling you get. It's hours and hours of preparation, both in terms of the hours in the water, it's the preparation behind the scenes, it's the logistics, it's working with the team. All of those have come to fruition at this single moment in time. And I think that there is trepidation, there's a little bit of fear, but I think overwhelming sense of excitement that we're actually going to get underway. So under the bridge we go at Lechlade, and the challenge begins. We had 200 kilometres to go. And I think that can be overwhelming, but for me, the way that I approach it is fundamentally just to block it down into small blocks. And the great thing about the Thames is that there are so many locks. Now they create their own challenge, but what they do is that they effectively set short-term goals on a constant basis. It's 4k an hour, bang on. I mean, the interesting thing is, as soon as I got into the Thames, the one thing I noticed instantly was almost zero flow. It was like getting into a lake. Now, to some extent, in predicting the pace, I take into account the flow of the river. But the fact that there was virtually no flow at all, it effectively meant that I was going to have to work harder in order to hit that pace that I needed in order to complete the challenge.
What up, mate?
2 hours, 9,000 metres. We're up on pace, which is nice. I mean, the Guinness World Record aspect of the challenge was an interesting one because when you do it inside those boundaries of the Guinness World Record, there's a huge amount of logistics that's required. And luckily for us, luckily for me, we had Helen Webster, who is an absolute legend, who was fundamentally in charge of that process.
Yeah, so it's going really well so far. I'm on Prof Greg's crew this week just to keep an eye on the Guinness World Record paperwork we need to complete, just to make sure that the challenge has been witnessed and it's all official and as it should be. So Greg's been swimming now for about 2.5 hours this morning. He's been through 3 locks and had 1 short 5-minute rest stop just for something to eat. So I'm keeping a bit of an eye on the timings today, and at the moment he's about 20 minutes ahead of schedule, which is phenomenal.
Setting a Guinness World Record was sort of important in 2 ways. One was from a personal motivation perspective, is I like to have a challenge. I like to set a challenge. But I think for me, by far, the most important thing about this challenge was about raising funds, and particularly about getting this message of drowning prevention and water safety out to the biggest community I could. And I think setting a Guinness World Record enabled us just to elevate that message and get it out to more people.
How's he going?
Really good. He set himself a target for going 4 kilometres an hour this morning, and he's right on point, so we've hit every time check. He's looking smooth, he's looking strong. So far so good. Yeah, he's having a good time, he seems to be in good spirits, which is the main thing, and yeah, everything's going well so far.
And have you fallen in yet?
Sorry?
Have you fallen in yet?
Not yet. It's only a matter of time.
I mean, the one thing to think about swimming is that it is probably the loneliest sport that exists. It is so isolating. And interestingly, in open water, in the River Thames, the water is black. You don't see anything. It's not like being in a pool where you can see the bottom, where you've got feedback. Every time you put your head into the water, it's darkness. And so it really is isolating. So actually, as weird as it sounds, having a stand-up paddleboard next to you, or having a boat next to you, or really importantly, having people on the bank watching you, cheering you, singing to you at times that we had, it makes such a difference. It's so motivating. It's incredible, because what it does is it takes you away from that isolation and that loneliness which long-distance swimming gives.
Well done, buddy.
How you doing?
18.5k, 4 hours. I wore 2 watches for a particular reason. One of the watches was the GPS tracker, and effectively what that's doing is it's tracking the swim the whole way along. Important for Guinness World Records, but also important for feedback to tell me and the team where we were, how far we'd come, how far we've got to go. But actually, in a moment of time, the GPS tracker really gave me virtually nothing at all while I was swimming. What I needed was feedback on what was happening in reality. And so having an analog watch on, so a face with dials on it, so I could actually tell what time of day it was, how long I'd been going, how long it takes me to get from one point to the next. All of those things are really important feedback in an environment where you're getting virtually no feedback at all.
I'm absolutely knackered. But you know, if it was easy, everyone would do it, wouldn't they? I bumped into a few logs and none of them were made of wood.
I mean, having spent a huge amount of time swimming in the Thames, I knew that the water quality was poor. I think one of the things that really surprised me was that it was so poor, so close to the source. I think what we all assume is that it will just get worse and worse as we go on. But almost instantly on entering the water, and certainly within the first few kilometres, I realised that the water quality in terms of human excrement in the water was going to be a real issue. Not only from a sort of enjoyability perspective of the swim itself, but actually about remaining healthy, because that contamination in the water has a profound effect on the human body. It is impossible not to consume some of that water when you're swimming, and when you're swimming those distances.
Yeah, it's going really, really well today. Ahead of schedule a little bit, and leapfrogging the boats is working really, really well. So we've always got a boat with Greg as well as a stand-up paddleboard, and he's doing really, really well with his swim.
How you doing, team?
Good, how are you?
Good. Cameraman Sam, all good?
All good.
Jem, good?
Good.
Christian, happy?
Yeah.
Very early on, I started to feel a little twinge in this right shoulder, and something that I've never experienced in the years of sport that I've done, the hundreds of thousands of meters that I've swum. I've never had problems with my shoulder, and yet really early on day one, it came in, and so with the knowledge that prevention is always better than cure, is that what I spoke to Pete, who is a magician himself, and every time I got out of the water at a lock, what I did is I had Pete just intervene to try and stretch it out, try and work on it, just to manage it for that first day, because we didn't have time to stop for a prolonged period of time because it was such a monstrous day. We had to keep going.
Oh, now I know how chicken feels.
I hope you never experienced stuffing.
Yeah, well,
No.
I hear you, mate.
Well, we are now 7.5 hours in, 30,500 meters done, but that leaves us with almost 25,000 to go still today. So to put that into context, we've done 3.5 marathons, 2.5 marathons to go. You're on the river, and there is an awful lot of wildlife along the river, but I think the nemesis of any open water swimmer is the swan, because the swans are incredibly territorial and they are very, very aggressive. I wouldn't worry about it if it was a duck, let's put it like that. But this one particular swan just took it upon herself. She was not very happy about us swimming and Bawley on the stand-up paddleboard next to me. We were in her territory and she was going to make us get out of her territory by hook or by crook. And away she went.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
So the first thing that I knew about this swan attack was when it hit the back of my head. And these things weigh some. It was like, my assumption was that I'd been hit by a boat. I thought a boat had come in behind me and hit me from behind. It just smashed straight down onto my head. At which point I looked to the right and saw the boat in absolute fits of laughter. They thought it was hilarious. I then looked to my left and Bawley, doing his absolute best to try and get the swan away from me, doing a really bad job, by the way, which he eventually fell in trying to do. And it was just, it was pandemonium.
Heads up.
I think what's incredible about swimming open water, particularly over the duration of a day, is that it changes constantly. The light changes as the sun rises and it goes down, but there is one moment which is just absolutely magical, and it's that point at which the sun is setting and it moves into dusk, so it's still light, you can still see everything, but it's just something really mystical about it, and it changes completely the way that you swim. All of a sudden it starts to feel a much greater flow. You just feel at one with the water. It sounds a really weird thing to say, but it's amazing how the light can make such a difference. As the day goes on, you become more and more exhausted. And of course, what's crucial for that exhaustion is energy. And I'm running into problems with actually fueling, because what you get when you're consuming so many calories that you actually get mechanical dysfunction of the esophagus where you can't swallow properly. So not only do I not really want to eat, the palatability of the food is gone, but actually the physicality of eating has gone as well. And at that point, that's the point at which it's really easy to start losing your belief and therefore your commitment, and because of that, the motivation. And I think that the one thing that always works for me, and I talk about it a lot, and that is about the central motivator. I think the key at those times is to always remember why you're doing this. You know, and the fact is that the Thames is a black spot for drowning. So many young people have lost their lives on the river. And I think even in those dark times, what I do is I remind myself about why we're doing this. It's about the messaging, it's about raising awareness of water safety to reduce drowning. And as difficult as I'm finding it, as tired as I am, that's by far the most important thing about this swim. So putting glow sticks in, as you can see, it is pitch black, and actually it's interesting when you're swimming, you literally just can't see anything. So we're getting glow sticks in so people can see me, and then glow sticks on everybody else so I can see them, which would be a bonus. I mean, swimming in the darkness is just one of the weirdest things you'll ever do. Critically, because it's very difficult to decide whether your head is below the water or above the water when you're taking the breath. And obviously, you don't want your head in the water when you inhale.
Where are we off to? To the right,
to the right, mate.
With me.
The reason for the glow sticks, obviously, is so that the team can see me, which is really important from a safety perspective. But actually, as I turn, I can see Bally on the stand-up paddleboard next to me. I know where he is, because what I can't do is navigate. There's lots of emotions going on right at the end of day one. I mean, utter exhaustion is the overriding feeling. And we got to midnight and we are one lock shore. But I think at that point, in my mind, what I knew is that we were right on the cusp of where everything had gone well to that point, and it could tip over and start to become a problem. And just looking at the time, I knew that my period of recovery, my period of rest, and importantly, the amount of sleep I was going to get was effectively getting shorter and shorter. And at the point at which we called day one, I knew that I was going to be getting a maximum of 3 hours of sleep. And that required everything to go smoothly from that point, from getting back to the boat, from getting treatment on the boat, from getting something to eat, to getting into bed. Any problem in that process, and that 3 hours was going to get shorter and shorter.
Day two, it's hard, really hard. He's about 80 kilometres into the swim at the moment, and he's suffering, but anybody would suffer doing that kind of mileage. The problem he's got at the moment, we're a little bit worried about. He's got this a bad shoulder, and he's had it for a little while. We've got a physio on board with us, so when we're stopping at the locks, he's getting a little bit of treatment occasionally for it. It's holding up at the moment, but it's becoming a little bit of a problem. But he's still swimming well, he's keeping on pace, but he's tired. You know, he's very tired, very little sleep last night, probably less than 2 hours after having done the full 17 or 18 hours yesterday. So he's suffering, but he's still going, and he's still in great spirits. So fingers crossed, he's going to get there, but it's still a long way to go.
So what's incredibly important to remember is that during an ultra endurance event like this, a big challenge like this, is that it ebbs and flows. There are periods of time when it's incredibly dark and it's really difficult to escape that darkness. But what you have to think to yourself is that actually just by progressing one arm stroke after the other, it will improve, and it always does improve. But there are moments that really make a massive difference. And for me, it's actually when I was joined by friends in the water. Because as we've said, it's incredibly lonely out there. It's amazing what difference it makes just having somebody swim alongside you. We talk an awful lot about marginal gains when it comes to sport, but for me, actually, from a psychological perspective, we actually have marginal gains that can be made on a continual basis. It's having the right food or having the right fluid at a stop. It's actually about just the right messaging coming in from the boat or from the stand-up paddleboard. And also for me, actually, it's just tiny little things like my daughters paint my little fingernail with a Union Jack on it, and just momentarily, as I'm swimming along or as I'm stopping at a lock, I'll just look at the hand and I get a glimpse of the Union Jack, and I remember about the support that I've got at home, and remember importantly that nothing great is ever achieved alone. It is all about the team, and the most important part of that team for me is my family. And so whilst the shoulder is still there, I can still feel it. Every time I see Pete at a lock, we're managing the shoulder. And that for me is a real positive. It's not improving, but we're managing as we go along. The one real problem that I'm worried about is actually eating. And I've got to the point now where not only is it difficult to eat, but I really don't want to eat. And fueling on this type of challenge, we're only at day 2, is absolutely key.
No, so we're just here to give you a bit of a boost.
No, you're very, very kind. Thanks for coming. The great thing was we were joined by so many friends as we went down the river, but one of the highlights for me was Zoe Ball, my old mate Zoe Ball from Radio 2, who did such an incredible job of actually pushing the message, drowning prevention and water safety, on her radio show.
Some kind of feedback.
Yeah,
Sorry.
not a feedback.
Who's going for a microphone?
And when she came along, it was brilliant to see her, because we've got quite a special relationship, because I looked after her on a challenge. And one of the things that I did with her is we had this great thing that, in order to sort of displace the misery that she was feeling at the time, very long cycle ride, is that I used to make up facts. But the way that I delivered them to Zoe was that they sounded absolutely true. And these facts were absolutely ridiculous. And it was only about 4 days into the challenge when Zoe suddenly realised that they were utter nonsense and I was completely making them up.
He's an absolute nutter, but he is the best nutter I know.
Did you know those white flowers over there?
Yeah.
Smallest white flowers in the UK.
Always with the ridiculous facts, even under the greatest pressure, he pulls them out. Don't ever check the facts because they're all absolute balls.
Well done, mate.
Well done. Absolute master. Absolute master.
I would give you a hug, but
I don't care. Can I hug you now? Oh God, you're amazing.
get wet.
Can I carry you?
yeah, on your
Can
back.
I would, over the shoulder.
Thanks for coming,
How
mate.
are you,
Really
darling?
appreciate it. It was magic to see Zoe and actually just feel her presence. But I remember asking me, what did I want? What did I need? And really all I could think about, and had been thinking about for quite some period of time, was pizza. But of course, we're in the middle of nowhere. How on earth are you going to get pizza? But Zoe Ball, being Zoe Ball, at the next stop, sat on the riverbank, along came pizza for me and the entire crew.
Oh, you know what you do? I actually spend, probably on that last one, about 2 hours dreaming of pizza. That's the tragedy of it.
And when the pizza arrived, it was incredible, because it was the first time that day really that I'd got in any significant calories, that I've been actually able to eat and swallow and consume a considerable amount of calories. And that really gave me a massive lift, because at that point I realised that what we were able to do was just increase and just work on that energy level that would enable us to keep going at the pace we needed. The challenge was all about raising awareness and raising money, and it was brilliant at those moments when I came out of the water to be told how much money we'd raised. The money was going fantastically well. The reach of the message was truly incredible. Mark Woods, who was with us, who was controlling all the social media, was doing an incredible job to get that message out of drowning prevention and water safety. And so those things really, what we were doing at that point was delivering on exactly why we were out there. And for me, that was a massive psychological boost. So end of day 2 was a really special moment, really, because it had all come together. We'd been joined by so many people. We'd raised incredible awareness of the project. We'd raised a lot of money. The shoulder was being managed. I'd actually managed to consume food, and so the energy levels were high.
What should we do tomorrow?
There is a pub across the river.
Should we just, I'll tell you what, why don't we just do the same thing over and over again tomorrow?
We were on target for the Guinness World Record. What could possibly go wrong?
So it's 5:10 in the morning, just started day 3, came into the cabin last night to Greg with DMV. He just had his massage and he didn't look great. He was being quite violently sick, but in true Greg fashion, he was very stoic about it. Just wanted to get his head down and get a bit of rest.
Are you worried about it, Chris? Are you worried about what's going to happen now?
It's always worrying when someone's doing a challenge like this and they start getting DMV, but everyone's keeping an eye on him, and he's ready to go for it. He wants to get it done.
Well, that was an interesting night, virtually no sleep at all, because I spent most of the time on or next to the toilet with diarrhea and vomiting. And you know, almost inevitable when you think about the water quality in the Thames and what I was swimming through. But when it comes, it can be absolutely debilitating, and it could mark the end of the challenge. So the real worries with vomiting and diarrhea was actually being sick in the water, a really dangerous thing to do. So I was having to stop to retch and to vomit. And of course, with the diarrhea, I mean, in a wetsuit, it's never a good look. But the positive of that was that I certainly couldn't have made the water quality any worse from what I was adding to it. So we stopped at one of the locks, and the team were really concerned, and they were doing their absolute utmost to get food into me to try and bring the energy levels up. But sadly, that was at the point when the barista from Unstoppable struck again. Andy Digweed was left alone to make porridge. And I used the term porridge very loosely because it was fundamentally inedible gruel, and it did nothing but actually make me feel worse rather than make me feel better.
I mean, that's disgusting.
I'll try my best.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not sure I'll go.
That's not going to work.
I'm not sure.
Despite running on fumes and my physical state getting worse and worse every mile that went by, actually it was then to draw upon the mind. It's the mind that overcomes those challenges. And I think what I did is draw upon all of the work that we'd done before. It is about the central motivator, the reason why we're there. Crucially, it's about the happy bank, the huge number of yards that we'd swum in training, which then enabled me to extract from that. And it's also about those strategies that I developed during training. You know, 10,000 meter sessions on a regular basis. But at this point, it was about drawing upon all of those in order just to keep me moving one arm in front of the other. What was great is as we came into these big conurbations, these big towns, was actually to be joined by people. The support was absolutely amazing. It was family, it was friends, it was former athlete mates of mine, and actually at times it was people that I'd never met before, which was fantastic. And it was just a simple hi and just a nod, but to know that they were together with me, supporting me in this challenge. And importantly, they were actually amplifying the message that we were getting out to people about the campaign, about drowning prevention and about water safety. All of that gave me a huge lift and just kept me moving on. Despite the positivity and the mental strength, there was one thing that I simply couldn't escape from, and that was the fact that the physicality of my body was breaking down. I was getting food in, but it was coming straight out, so it meant energy levels were low. But most importantly was the shoulder. The shoulder was just getting worse and worse every stroke I took.
Really bad. Really bad.
So 60 hours in, and having tried a number of different tactics to keep going, what I realised was that the only thing that was going to help here was going to be rest and nutrition. I hadn't eaten anything, I was running low on energy, I hadn't had any sleep, and the shoulder needed some treatment. And speaking to the team, what we decided was now would be a good time to take that break and to ensure that we could try and combat some of those problems to make sure that we stayed on target. So we called it just outside Medmenham, which is close to home, and what that meant was actually my family came to see me, and what a psychological lift that was. It made such a difference. Probably one of the lowest moments of the swim thus far, they gave me that lift that I really needed. And so it was a bittersweet moment where I knew we'd called it early because of the problems that we were having, but it was absolutely fabulous to see my family who were supporting me the whole way. The start of the next day really felt like a new beginning. I felt like a new man. I was re-energized. I'd managed to have something to eat. The diarrhea and vomiting had subsided. The shoulder felt like it was in a better position, and I was absolutely focused on delivering the goal. And it was such a beautiful morning, so serene, and the mist across the water was truly incredible. But it soon became apparent that one thing I couldn't escape was the shoulder. I just couldn't escape the pain. I mean, having been an elite athlete and been an athlete for so many years, I had never experienced anything like that before. And add on top of that, it wasn't just about the pain, it was actually about my ability to swim. Every time I brought my arm out of the water, it struck with pain. So therefore my power output was dropping, my speed was dropping, everything was being affected by this shoulder. Well, we came to what was a really important part of the challenge for me, because fundamentally I was swimming home. I was coming into Marlow, an area that I had swum so many thousands of meters in. It was all incredibly familiar to me. At that point, friends came and joined me. It was absolutely the right place to be at the right time. And I was just saying to myself constantly, keep going, keep driving, you can do this. And I knew the end goal of this particular section was Marlow Lock, where I was going to be met by lots of friends and family. It was really important to me. But lying underneath that was still the shoulder. As hard as I was driving, as much as I wanted it, I simply was struggling to overcome the pain that I was feeling in that shoulder. Well, 72 hours in, 150,000 meters swum, and we reached Marlow Lock. And for me, it was, without any shadow of doubt, the highlight of the entire trip. To see so many supporters, so many friends, so many family there to support me, and importantly to push the message, to drive home the importance of what we were actually doing around water safety and drowning prevention was just incredible to see. But it was a bittersweet moment, because it was at the same time I was in absolute agony with the shoulder, and I was attempting to put a brave face on it. I was truly delighted to see everybody, but at the same time all I could think about was how far I still had to go. To get back into the water from Marlow Lock, it was literally within strokes that I realised the shoulder had gone. It had gone completely. No longer was it just simply an aggravation or a discomfort or pain. I simply couldn't move my arm anymore. And I think it was at that point that I sort of looked at the team and saw what an incredible group of people I had around me. But at that moment, I just knew that I couldn't go on.
Stop your watch there, Prof.
Well done, Whitey. Well done, mate.
Well done, bud. Well done.
Absolutely fantastic.
Massive.
Absolutely fantastic.
Stopping it, yeah?
Come on, mate. Just sit down.
I mean, it's such a difficult time, because I think the overwhelming feeling is that you've let people down. You've let the team down. You've let your family down. You've let the charity down. And it's not a personal thing. It's not about me. Difficult, really difficult. There are lots of things that go through your mind at this point, and around what next or what's going to happen. So the Guinness World Record, was it still on? What could we do about that? The charity, and about the messaging, and about the campaign itself, what would happen with that? And what about the shoulder? I'm an athlete. Have I done irreparable damage to the shoulder which is going to have a profound effect on my performance into the future. It was important to get an expert opinion on the extent of the damage to the shoulder. So I went to see Dr. Matt Stride, one of the world's leading sports medics based in London, and someone who I've worked with on many ultra-endurance challenges.
I can see there's good tension in there, so there's no full rupture, but there is just an area of concern within the tendon, which is strongly suspicious of there being a tear within there, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
It's likely this has probably been attritional in nature, but it's probably got a bit bigger and it's sort of accounting for the pain he's been getting. You know, there's quite a few things going on here, all right? So we've got definite evidence of bursitis in the subdeltoid and subacromial region. You've got thickening of three of the rotator cuff tendons, which I can visualize very well. And the principal area of concern is at the front part of your shoulder, where you've got the long head of biceps tendon coming in. There's features of thickening and keeping what sort of, if you like, tendon, what we call the term tendinopathy. But I've got a strong suspicion there is a tear within that tendon.
So, I mean, when push comes to shove, Matty, to swim or not to swim?
My advice is if there's any way you can incorporate in a training, you know, a degree of rest here, I think this will help. But, you know, ultimately it has to be your decision, Greg.
I had so much to think about. Whilst I was rehabilitating, it gave me the opportunity to reflect on the challenge. We'd come so far, but we still had a long way to go. The biggest question was, even with a period of recovery, could I complete the challenge safely? I had to go back. I had to finish what I had started. You asked me why I'm taking on this challenge. Well, actually, it's the why that completely consumes me. It is about drowning prevention and about water safety. The unimaginable loss of a loved one to drowning, something that is preventable, just with an improvement in water safety education, with increasing the ability to swim in children and across the population, we can prevent these horrendous, heartfelt tragedies from happening, and we can save lives. Back in the water, and it's a different place from where I left when I got out, and I'm feeling absolutely fabulous. The energy is back, the desire is back, and of course underneath all of that though is the shoulder. I can still feel the shoulder hasn't gone away, of course it hasn't gone away, but I'm feeling much stronger, I'm feeling much more positive, and I'm ready to attack. And so I really went for it, one arm in front of the other, but knowing that every arm stroke is an arm stroke closer to the finish. Unfortunately, the Guinness World Record was off because it's a time challenge, but really that didn't matter to me. It was important that I finished what I set out to achieve, and that was swim the entire length of the Upper Thames. And crucially associated with that was to raise awareness of water safety and drowning prevention, and raise as much money as we could for those important charities, the Royal Lifesaving Society and the Royal National Lifeboat Institute, and support the incredibly important work that they do in that area. The last day is magical, albeit we've still got 36,000 meters to go. It really did feel like the final straight.
Yeah, I think he'll get it done today. I mean, he's been saying that he's aware of his shoulder, so you know, I don't think it's feeling quite right, but I mean, we've seen from his swimming that it's definitely strong enough to get him through. And I think now we've probably got about 25k left to go, so Greg just want to get it done, get it finished. It's interesting actually, one of the reasons for coming back and finishing this challenge is really to support the drowning prevention campaign, and in the 2 weeks he was off healing we had a lot of lives lost in the UK through drowning, very sadly. So I think he's really kind of motivated by that and to get that message out there that it's important to learn water safety and to be really kind of aware of the waterways in the UK and just being really kind of conscious of looking after ourselves around them. So, you know, the money he's raising is fantastic, but the message is equally important.
Oh, don't open your mouth, Greg.
It's absolutely disgusting the way that the water companies treat the River Thames. I mean, if we were to do that in normal life, just to walk into the street and throw our bins into the middle of the street, there would be consequences. But it feels like there are no consequences. The entire length of the Upper Thames, there was raw sewage being dumped into rivers on a continual basis. And it wasn't because of adverse weather conditions, because it was one of the hottest summers on record. We had no rainfall at all, to the point where there was virtually no flow along the river. What that meant was that you got these areas of concentrated sewage that I was swimming through. And not only how unpleasant that is, but also the health dangers that poses. And yet it continues unabated and nobody is doing anything about it.
It is like an open sewer. I mean, I kid you not, there's a section back there where first off you could smell it and then you could taste it and see it. And it was unbelievable. It lasted for about a quarter of a mile. And it is a disgrace that they dump sewage into such a beautiful river. Absolute disgrace.
I mean, whilst we've still got a long way to go, actually the challenge is coming to fruition. Everybody starts to feel the sense that we are going to get to the finish. And I think that is really a very special moment when so much time, so much effort and so much energy has been put into a project in order to deliver on this campaign that we were driving for. Literally the final stretch coming into Teddington Lock was just, it was almost overwhelming. You know, at one point I flicked to the side and saw my youngest son, Mitch, on the side shouting. And then when I looked up, I could see people on the lock screaming and shouting and clapping. It was really something very, very special. I mean, touching the lock and hearing the air horn go off, it was absolute relief. And it's a strange one. I think you only ever feel that when you've really challenged yourself, because in the making of the challenge was massive, in delivering the challenge was massive, and at that point, as soon as the hand touches it, it's over. There's no more pressure. All of the pressure has gone.
Nothing great is ever achieved alone. Thank you, guys.
Have you heard your official time?
No.
101 hours, 9 minutes and 17 seconds to swim 125 miles of the Thames.
Oh, I wanted to go under 100. I'll take that. You know what, if you said 400, I would take it.
I mean, finishing the challenge and having everyone around you, all of those supporters, the entire team, the big team. So, you know, it's family, it's friends, it's the sponsors of the challenge, it's all the guys on the team who were in the boats on the stand-up paddleboard. Everybody together. I think for me, what's wonderful about it is that we are all celebrating together. It's not about me, and it's not necessarily about the swim. It's actually about what we have delivered, which is, you know, a truly monumental challenge, which will make a difference long into the future.
Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
You've done it. You've done it. How are you feeling?
Do you know what? It's sort of mixed emotions in the sense that, you know, it's over. You know, months of prep and training and years, and it's just so good to finish. Because let me tell you, that goes on forever. But it's awesome. No, really awesome. I'm absolutely delighted. And more importantly, I think the messaging of water safety, learning to swim and drowning prevention, and the money we've raised for the RLSS and RNLI is just absolutely astronomical and will go on to save lives. So it's a success all round.
So Greg, I always ask, what next? What's next? Well, you know what I'd love to say is I'm just going to do nothing. Sit back, put my feet up. But to be honest with you, I always say to myself, nothing good comes easy. So I'm sure I'll think of something.